Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is the 2024 KTM Duke 790, and it has a number of small features that added together really make it stand out in the class. Now in this video, I'm gonna show you things the other videos aren't showing you. I'm gonna talk about things the other videos aren't talking about. And if I miss something that you wanna know because maybe you're a fan of this bike or a fan of this class of bike, make sure you let me know in the comments below, because I'm filming here at McLean Sports where they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if there's something you want to know, let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer it in the comments, and if I don't answer it there, I'll go back to it and make more videos on this bike to make sure that you get all the answers you want. So do me a favor, if you're into this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button just to show McLean's that it's worth me doing these videos, and let's get going with this review. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know that I like to start with the front tire because you get to see the manufacturer's intent here. And there's a lot of good for the class. You want to see something sporty. You got lightweight wheels, you got dual disc brakes, you've got ABS, which is corner censoring ABS. You have the radial mount caliper. So again, that's a little bit more of a stiff mount. And the upside down forks also make for a stiffer thing. So everything here says sport. Couple little things that I find interesting. KTM is not afraid to put, for instance, Michelin tires on some of their 390s, right? This one's got Maxxis tires. It also doesn't have adjustable suspension. Now that's in line with the KTM 790 Adventure, which rides perfectly fine without that suspension, and this one does as well. But it is interesting to note that some of the 390s, if you're moving up from a 390, the Adventure, the RC 390, for instance, they have adjustable suspension. This one now does not. The other thing, like I said, Michelin tires are on some of their other 390 bikes, for instance. These ones are Maxxis tires. I don't know that that's better or worse, but it's worth noting there. Everything else about this bike tells me it is high quality, pretty high end for the class, but there are a couple of those cost cutting measures to hit a price point with the non-adjustable suspension and a little bit different tires. I'm assuming these Maxxis tires are a little bit less expensive than the Michelins, but again, ratings wise, I don't know. Now, is that going to affect your performance? I don't think so. I think you're going to have more tire and more suspension than the average 790 rider is ever going to need, but worth noting, if you ever take this to the track or that kind of thing, you don't have that adjustable suspension and you may or may not want to upgrade certain tires. Let's take a look at the heart of this bike now. So the heart of this bike is a parallel twin 799cc. So 790 is actually a 799cc engine. And this one makes about 105 horsepower, which is good power. And it also makes a pretty good amount of torque, but the torque is higher up than some, for instance, 4-cylinder bikes could do, depending on the bikes in the class. Again, I've got the Z900RS SE model, which is technically a naked bike. It's a 4-cylinder bike. It is a bigger engine and it has a little bit more torque down low in the class. So while this is a very torquey engine, having that torque up higher means that it still keeps some of that fun. You don't have the luxury of not having to shift because the torque's way down low. You still get the enjoyment of needing to shift in various spots, but when you do get it in those mid to upper revs, you really do have an engine that pulls. Now KTM also makes a lot of mention about how this is the most compact engine in the class. And again, all of that, along with a narrow frame, fairly small bike, makes this thing very, very nimble, very, very sporty. And of course, this is all tied to electronic system with multiple ride modes, which we'll talk about in a second. So this thing is set up purely for fun, right from the factory, and I think that's what a lot of people want in this class. So when you read KTM's marketing magic, you find out that the frame is among the lightest around, and of course we talk about a lot of narrowness and that kind of thing, and usually that can lead to saving too much weight in the padding or making seats too narrow and that kind of thing. But KTM does a really good job of making this bike comfortable. I'm going to show you me sitting on it in a second, but I want to talk about the seat really quickly because they talk about how they've tested this seat with both leathers and textiles. Now I'm sure every manufacturer does this, but these guys actually talk about it, so maybe there's something different in what they do. And you can kind of, now that they mentioned it, let's sort of take a look at it. You can see that this is a very grippy section here on the top, but if you can see in the video, this is a little different color for you, and that's because it's a different texture. This, although grippy, does allow some movement, so you can kind of like, when those tight corners, you can slide your legs around there. So while it feels good when you press against it for grip, you can see that this allows you to slide a little bit more than this does. So again, good size seat, good padding, good softness to it, good comfort. There's a lot more firm seats in this class for sure. Rear seat is a separate thing made out of the same type of material here. So again, a little bit more sliding ability there, but it's not, it's class competitive. It's not super small, not super huge. That's kind of what you get in this class. But interesting to note that they do talk about their seat being set up for leathers and textiles, pants, whatever you've got. And again, like I said, comfort, even though you're going with lightweight, narrow, that kind of stuff, they do a good job with comfort. Let's take a look at what it looks like with me on this bike so you get a sense of the seating position, and we'll go from there. So I'm about 6 feet tall, and this bike, proportional 6-footer, and this bike is pretty compact. Like I said, it feels like a much smaller bike when you hop on. Now, again, jumping across here, you can sort of feel that sort of lightweight feel. It's not intimidating in any way. Seating position, the handlebars are nice and close to you, not too far down, typical naked bike stuff. Now, what you have if you go too far for comfort on a naked bike is you sit a little more square, you lower the foot pegs a little bit. For most riding, a little bit lower foot pegs are gonna be absolutely fine. But if your naked bike is truly made for sport, it should be able to go on the racetrack. And one thing I find here is your legs are a little bit back further. Again, not at an uncomfortable angle, but they are back a long ways, and that really does allow you to have extreme lean angles. So this thing is truly that naked bike type feel where you can get this bike leaned right over it like you could on a sport bike, but you also have that pretty comfortable feel. So again, for some people, it's gonna be a little bit tougher to get used to compared to some other naked bikes that put you a little bit more here, but I don't think it's any less comfortable, and you can see the weight on my hands, just not really an issue. Good visibility, but again, very compact feeling here. There's a narrowness to it with your legs, you know, just a very much lighter feeling bike and smaller feeling bike than the typical 800cc naked bike. So one of the hidden gems of this bike is the technology, but the technology is set up to allow you to have a lot of fun, and there's also a few hidden hardware things to allow you to have more fun with that. So this down here is a steering damper. Now you see those on race bikes, that kind of thing. This is certainly a track-capable bike, but it's also really helpful if you're doing wheelies, and this thing will allow you to do wheelies of various levels. So we're gonna talk about that in a second, but before we get going too far, you're gonna see as we turn on this bike, you're gonna see the dash here. We're going to talk about the dash, but there's a lot of things like ride modes and the motorcycle spin adapter. So we're going to, oh, you see a flicker here. You know what? We're going to try to fix the angle here to fix that flicker, and we'll talk about some of the technologies. All right, we'll get to that dash in just 1 second, but first I want to talk about a couple of technology in here. So we've got ride modes, we'll talk about them in just 1 second, but the motorcycle MTC spin adjuster is what they call it on the website. I'm going to read a couple things from that website as we put this into sort of play as we show you the dash. So basically it's got a traction control. The traction control is lean sensitive. Now that's pretty rare for the class, but it really makes a difference because you're going to have a different type of technology needed to have effective traction control at extreme lean angles compared to going upright or being upright. So it is lean sensitive, and what it does is it can, I'll read the exact word here, reduces engine output extremely smooth. So extremely smoothly is how I would word that. It's barely perceptible according to this, and depending on the selected ride mode, it also allows several levels of traction slip at the rear wheel. And that's not the end of it. Daredevils, we give you an off switch. So in other words, you can turn the traction control fully off, which is going to allow for those wheelies, which is why that steering damper's there, but you also have various levels of slip to allow you to have a little bit extra fun, and it all is lean sensitive. So instead of just allowing a certain amount of slip at a certain angle, which can send you down compared to, you know, this angle is going to need a certain amount of slip, but too much angle, certain amount of slip just puts you right over. It's lean angle sensitive in its slip. That is a big difference. Even if you're not kind of a daredevil, as they say, if you're in a safety situation, it can sense your lean and it can give you the right amount of traction, the right amount of control. And again, you have rain mode. We're going to talk about all the drive modes here, but if you're driving in poor weather, same type of thing. It can sense your lean angle, sense the slip, and go, hey, that much slip at this much angle is not going to work, so let me help you out with that. So pretty cool system. Let's take a look at the dash properly now. All right, I am having trouble fully eliminating that flicker that you see. I do apologize for that. Hopefully it'll show up less on your screen than it does on my screen while filming. What we've got here is a screen that does not flicker in real life. It is very, very clear. Now, it's not quite as big as some of the other KTM displays, but it does have a few unique things. First of all, let's talk about those ride modes. You've got Sport, Street, Rain, and Track mode. You can see I've got it in the Sport mode right now, so very clearly available to the rider. Now these are things you can switch on the fly, which is very nice. If you hit some rain, drop it down to rain, you want to hit a open stretch of road, hit that Track mode. Sport is probably where I would drive it. Street certainly gives you full power as well. The rain mode will cut some things back and change traction control settings, all of those kind of things. So that's what they do. You can see the ABS mode is set to road right down there as well. And then you have some cool things that go on with the TFT display. So the TFT display is sort of a multicolor type thing. You can see some orange in there. And what it can do is it can actually change the tack. So of course the tack runs up there. It can change it based on if the engine isn't warm enough, or if you go to a track mode, it can change that kind of stuff as well. So you have what looks like a simple display in the showroom, but it really does give you some variance. And like a lot of displays like this, and I do apologize for that flicker there, a lot of displays like this will show you you know, for instance, if you want to set a rev limit, it'll flash or change color or that kind of thing. But this one has, if it's too cold, all that kinds of things to be revving that high. All of those things will be available there. And again, there's a lot of controls in here. So you can go into all sorts of things, tells you your fuel range, that kind of thing, even while you're stopped, which is kind of nice to see. So let's just zoom back in there. Again, that flickering display. Fuel range down the very bottom there. We're going to go back out of there. We're going to go into the various things here. I like going in this motorcycle setting here, so we're going to select that. Oops, yeah, motorcycle traction control there, the ABS mode there. So we're going to just change that one for a second. So Supermoto allows that rear wheel to slip out, and the road is the normal. And then you can change that shift light. Again, that shift light, oh, okay. So we got to unlock this bike. It's still in shipping mode right now, but you have that shift light and other things in there that you can adjust. So temperature, fuel gauge, various information that you can customize, and speedometer, and of course the gear shift indicator on top left, very clearly available there as well. Taking a look at the controls that control that dash, very simple stuff here. First of all, you still got the flash to pass trigger out there, which a lot of bikes have, but you can use the push forward to lock on your high beam. So that's just regular headlights there, high beam when you hold it, and then high beam will stay on when you push it. And that's up there because you can't put a headlight switch down here when you have very simple controls to control the dash. This is very easy to figure out those menus, even on the fly. A lot of these menus, in fact, I think almost all of the menus can be done while you're driving, which some manufacturers will lock you out of doing. Obviously, be smart about that. Don't be unsafe. But the fact that you can do it, in my mind, sometimes makes it more safe because you just want to change something, you know how to do it. It'll let you do it while you do that. Signals over here, simple stuff, and the horn down low. I want to show you this brake lever, or the clutch lever here. It's the same as the brake lever. I want to see if I can show you the texture on that, because that's another thing that's kind of unique about this bike. All right, so looking at the throttle side still, this is your clutch lever here. You can see pulls in there. You've got your adjuster here. So again, both brake lever and clutch lever have adjusters for reach. So not only does that make it good for larger or smaller hands, it also adjusts that grab point where that clutch can grab or where that brake can grab to make it really precise for you. Now again, I want to try to show you, let's see if I can do this well. We're going to zoom right into the brake lever here, and we'll try to get the focus right there. Can we do it? Oh, I'm gonna get my shadows in the other way. You can sort of see there's a little bit of texture in there. And what I can tell you is you can absolutely feel that texture. And what that does is gives you a little bit more of a grippy brake and clutch lever. And I kind of like that. It's the same idea as the seat. It's the little things that make a bit of a difference. All right, let's move forward, take a look at the lighting. There's good and there's okay right here. So let's take a look at that. So I just drove the KTM 990 the other day, and it had a whole different light. So you still have sort of this outside look, but you have sort of projector beams in the middle. They are changing their look up. I guess this was controversial for some. I like KTM's look. I think it looks good in person there. It's sort of the bug kind of look there. You've got your daytime running light around the outside here. This isn't on right now. I'm just showing you the easiest way without it being on. And then you've got your high beam and low beam in the center there. That's all good stuff. It works very well. This you know, to be seen and to see as well. One thing that surprises me a little bit is you've got incandescent signal lights here. Again, a little bit of hitting the price point on this, just that non-adjustable suspension, a little different brand of tires, and the incandescent bulbs there. None of this is probably going to matter to the average rider, but worth pointing out that other bikes in this class will have the LED lights on the signals. Kind of an interesting, obviously you could upgrade stuff like that. Let's talk about a couple other things that make this bike unique that aren't on this bike, but could be. So before we talk about if this bike is right for you or not, let's talk about the few things that you don't have on this bike that you could have on this bike. First of all, KTM has something that to some people is very controversial. I'm not going to get into if it's controversial or not, but basically this bike comes kind of as equipped, and a lot of KTMs now come as equipped. And for the first 1,500 kilometers, you kind of have the everything package. And then after 1,500 kilometers, some software locks out some things. That frustrates some people. I get why it does that. I see the other side. If you can make bikes where every bike is the same and then add accessories just for software unlocking, that makes it easier to manufacture. Long story short, it doesn't matter. This bike and other KTM bikes have accessories that should be software unlocked. So if you are shopping for any KTM right now, you need to talk to your salesperson about some of those software lockable things. Other bikes like the KTM Adventure has cruise control. It has the switch, but after 1,500 kilometers, you won't have that anymore unless you buy the software package. That might be some reason that you buy that bike because it's one of the only bikes in its class with cruise control. This one does not have a cruise control switch, so that's not an option. But there are things that can be software unlocked. It's worth knowing what those things are on any KTM because you can pay for them up front and keep them unlocked forever. You can decide later on if you want to add them. There's a whole bunch of things to think about with that. But speaking of features that aren't on this bike is a very compact bike. And talking about who it's for and who it's not for, you may be looking at me getting on this thing and say, okay, as a 6-footer, maybe you're smaller than me as a 6-footer and it looks a little large, even though you like this bike because it is compact, it is fairly lightweight. Well, if you're shorter than me, KTM has an accessory factory lowering kit. So you can put on KTM accessories to lower this bike and make it right for you. And this is one of those bikes that I really feel makes sense for that because it is such a compact bike. It's not a big 800cc bike, it's a small 800cc bike that feels a lot like 400 and 500cc bikes. And if it's all good dimensions but a little too tall for you, having that factory option to lower it just kind of makes me feel a little better because you know you're properly lowering the bike according to manufacturer specs and that kind of thing. So that's an option. And their power parts section, which is their accessories for KTM, is well worth the look if you're checking out a KTM because you can really make these bikes a lot of what you want. You could add on some, soft luggage here and do some tours and that kind of thing because it is comfortable enough to do that. I want to make it a little more racy. I'm sure there's options for that as well. So lots of options. It's worth looking at the accessories when you look at these bikes. But let's talk about who it's right for and who it's not right for. So first of all, if you are a high-end motorcyclist and you want all the fancy things to take it to the track, like that adjustable suspension, this might not be the bike for you. If you are a normal sporty rider that needs an everyday bike but wants to ride athletically, maybe go to the track, this thing is really good. If you want something that has some good technology to allow for various drive modes, to allow for the cornering traction control, having something like that, having that extra technology to both make you safer and help you have more fun, this thing's fantastic. This thing is a lot of fun, and it does the fun stuff not just through the technology but through the basic design of the bike. Lightweight frame, compact engine, small compact design makes it very fun, very flickable. You want to learn to do wheelies, you can do wheelies, you want to do everything else. This is a bike that does have a lot of power, but it doesn't scare me for some beginners. Not young beginners. You want to have a mature enough brain that you recognize the power, but it's certainly not something that I would shy away from letting more mature new riders or returning riders have, because this thing is going to be a lot of fun. I like the engine. Like I said, that torque is high, but it's a little higher in the revs, so you're still revving the bike out to make power, but it's got great power up top. And again, down low, it's not like it's lacking in power, but you're still going to be shifting through your gears, which is part of the fun of owning a motorcycle anyways. Very good bike, very good in the class is my overall review. If it's right for you, let me know in the comments what you like about it, what do you not like about it. Fill the comments with what you think about this bike, and do me a favor, give the video a like, maybe even hit subscribe. We'll come back to you with more videos like this. Thanks to McLean Sports for giving me access. We'll talk to you guys in the next one.